Alright, well, that was a crazy chapter. One Piece chapter 1014 literally just dropped there a couple hours ago. And damn, there was a lot dropped, man. There's a lot to talk about, so let's start. Kaido, so I looks like I was wrong. Looks like nothing's gonna happen with Luffy. Right now at least, he's not gonna fall on Onigashima or not only Wano, because they're slightly off Wano. Because they show him falling into the water, so we see him in the water now. So he's probably there's a few things they could do. The logical thing would be saved by what's his name, Law's submarine. So Lord Beppo's gonna come in and save the day. Let's go. That's gonna be cool. But there's so much other than that happened. We'll go back to Luffy in a minute. But so Kaido knows about Joy Boy. That is crazy, and I have my own thoughts on that as well. So Kaido's like, "You're no Joy Boy, or you're not Joy Boy either." So that it's either that Rox knows about Joy Boy and told Kaido, and that's how Kaido knows, or Kaido knows about Joy Boy, and the reason he followed Zebek was because he thought Zebek would have been Joy Boy, but then Zebek turned out not to be Joy Boy, and he was disappointed because we know he's disappointed in Zebek because he was forgotten. So he knows he's not Joy Boy, and then obviously maybe he thought Roger might be Joy Boy, then maybe Odin, and he's been disappointed many times, and he thought, damn, Luffy might be able to be Joy Boy, and he was wrong again, which he's disappointed about, right? So that makes sense if that's the case. There's two ways we could go about it. If it was the Beck that told him about Joy Boy, it could be like he suspected, like literally suspected Luffy to be Joy Boy because of the smile. Maybe he originally suspected Roger, but you see, we see him praising Roger, so it can't be that either, right? Because he's praising Roger. So it must be Odin he thought might end up being Joy Boy, or maybe even Whitebeard at some point. But they didn't end up being Joy Boy in the end, so he was disappointed. And then he really thought it was going to be Luffy. There's many ways to look at it. No, but we see after the whole Kaido thing, right? He wants to announce his victory, which he does, and people are real shocked. But I wonder what that's going to do now, because obviously it's setting up for something. It could be morale change. Maybe it's like to show the shift in morale. I'd say everyone except for the Straw Hats are going to lose faith in Luffy, and that's the idea. That's what's going to happen. Like, it's going to show the strength of the Straw Hats. And maybe they focus on going up to Kaido, or attacking Kaido then. Because Kaido's with Momonosuke, right? Everyone's going to know where Kaido is. So Kaido's not on the roof anymore. So it's easier for all the Straw Hats to fight against him now, which was the original thought based on the 23rd anime opening. So I could see that definitely happening now. Now, how Luffy's going to get back up, there's a few ways they could do that, so we'll talk about that later. Because it's definitely not going to be Yamato or Momonosuke at this point. I mean, Yamato, something could still happen with Yamato depending on what her fish is, or what her fish is, what her fruit is. But there's been a lot of talk about that over the last couple of weeks. I hope it's a dragon. That's my hope. So could she be like a water dragon? I don't know. No, that's not gonna happen. But there's a lot that could happen because Kaido went and attacked Momonosuke now. So Momonosuke read the journal. So I think I have an idea, right? What if, because of what Odin wrote down there, the voices of the previous quote unquote Joy Boys are stored within those memories or stored within those logbooks? If you can hear the voice of all things. So he could be hearing the original Joy Boy. Or he could be hearing a mix of Joy Boy, Roger, and Odin all in three. And that's why he's like, who are you? Because he can't recognize them. Because it could be a mishmash of the three voices, maybe. Because they're like considered somewhat of a D. Well, I mean, Odin, if you saw the latest anime episode, Odin is very much kind of a inherited D. And I have my theories on the D, the Will of D itself, which I will talk about at some point. But I think at this point we kind of think Momonosuke can hear the voices of the people from the Joy Boys or the D's of the past because the stuff written in that book is so powerful. He can hear something like that. Because I don't know, maybe he could be hearing his own father, but I think he would have recognized it then, right? Or as people were, I think another thing that could be, because that's a bit unrealistic, right? Voices in pages, even for One Piece, it's a bit unrealistic. So maybe he could be hearing Zanisha, because he still hasn't gotten used to Zanisha's voice. So maybe Zanisha's coming to Wano because he's in danger. We could see that because he does say after he reads the book that he is not able to die. So it's very clear that something's gonna happen. Maybe Zanisha's coming to rescue him, and all of them will come and attack Wano. That would also be a way to stop Onigashima from crashing into Wano, right? Because Zanisha's pretty big. If Zanisha goes out, like protecting Wano from Onigashima, like the Minx will be accommodated for, because if Momonosuke becomes Shogun, he will allow them to live there. So them losing Zou won't exactly be a problem. It could be a problem if you consider, Zanisha a weapon or a ancient weapon. But I don't know. I think maybe who could be an ancient weapon? Honestly, could Zanisha be one, or could it be Momonosuke himself? We really don't know. And on the topic, actually, Act 3 did not end this chapter like people were thinking, so that's a bit disappointing, because I'm really desperate to get back to Reverie Intermittent chapter, to be honest. I want to see what the fuck happened, man. I'm really desperate for that right now, not going to lie. There's so much shit that happened. So Choppers now, they see this. I'm going to talk about Luffy now in a second, but what happened here in this chapter makes me think there could be a possibility of, flashbacks to set up for future events. As in, like, we got a flashback when Chopper was fighting Queen to show that his Rumble Ball was basically edited by, or modified by Caesar. So, my thoughts now are there could be a ton of different ways that Luffy could be saved from the sea. Alright, first option is the submarine, right? Lost submarine, which is probably the most obvious one. That's pretty much, I'd say, the 99.9% chance of it happening. And Beppo comes in and saves the day, right? That's like the most likely option. I think everyone's going for at this point. Or we could have something where like they could flash back to have the Grand Fleet come in. And obviously that's a bit over the top, but if you think about it, after this chapter, Oda is willing to flash back after something happens to justify it. So a lot of stuff is not off the table anymore that we thought was initially off the table in this arc with that. Obviously I think the Grand Fleet won't happen, because that's a bit too drastic, plus a lot of them are in Reverie right now, and how the fuck would they get away from Reverie to be able to protect him, right? So there's a lot to talk about. I think, like, sure, Hoshi's not gonna happen unless she knows somehow about Luffy, unless there's like newspapers about him. Like, she could use her powers to kind of get the Sea Kings to help him, but she's nowhere near Wano right now as far as we know. But I think it's more likely for Fishman or like something like that to be able to save him than it will be for the Grand Fleet to come here. It'd be more realistic for like Shirahoshi to have like her powers be long range and somehow be able to save him due to a flashback to, oh, we know what's going on in Wano, and she calls to help. Like, it's unrealistic as all hell, but we're talking about random ideas here. I think the most likely option here would be the submarine, but one of the other likelier options would be, so we know Jinbei came back, and we probably know that most of the Sun Pirates are dead. But what if he did? What if like a few of them are still around? And this is what I'm thinking. Maybe like the Aladdin looking fishman will save him. You know what I mean? Maybe he was the only other one to survive, and he just stayed hidden, or he didn't get to Wano as quick as Jinbei, because Jinbei was desperate to get there, and that's how they save Luffy. Obviously, that could be easily established, and it wouldn't seem as much of an ass pull as the other options. So it's either that or it's going to be the submarine at this point, because we did actually see him fall in even the second page of the in this chapter. We saw him hit the water, or at least that's what I think it was. It looked very obvious, but I couldn't tell because it wasn't colored. It looked like a ground, but at the same time, the way Wano or Onigashima was painted at the last image of the chapter, it seemed like they were still over water slightly. So he's probably gone into water at this point. if he hasn't, then everything I said previous stands in the last time we talked about with chapter 1013. But damn, like, so Kiku looks like she's gonna be dead. I honestly think I've kind of decided at this point that the Scabbards aren't gonna make it out alive, right? I don't think they will. I think that's gonna be like a tragedy because Oda's, although he's afraid of death, I think he's been a lot more, well, not afraid of death, but afraid to have death in One Piece because of how big his series has gotten and because it's near the end game. He's more willing to kill off characters. So I feel like if Ashura Doji stays dead, if Kiku dies, I don't think Kinamon's gonna die. I think someone's gonna save him, whoever it is. It could be Sanji. It could be Luffy, for fuck's sake. My first thought was Luffy comes back from how he fell, but it wasn't that, like, it wasn't that far after he fell, so I doubt it. But it could be. It could be any one of the people on the same floor as him, right? Because that's still the live floor. It's just a storage room in the live floor. From what I remember, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It might be the second floor instead of the first floor, which I think is what the live floor is. Now, again, I'm probably wrong or whatever. Actually, no, I am wrong because Sanji was on the floor Momonosuke and all wrong because he was like, I'll run left or right. And then he was like, let's go to the live floor. So it could still be Sanji. Sanji could still save him, actually. That's more likely than anything. And we have seen Sanji do saves before. And, I mean, let's see. That would be cool to see him stare down Kaido. I mean, Zoro fans would get real salty, but that's besides the point, right? That is possible. I doubt it, though. Kinemon could get killed, but I really don't think so. I don't think he's going to get killed in this. I think he will eventually in this arc. Or maybe he's the only Scabbard to survive because he has a wife. Because if you think about it, no one else has attachments to this world besides Kiku. But it's likely that Izu is going to die as well. If Kiku dies, Izu is likely going to die as well. But everyone else, they're really the only ones other than Momonosuke that have connections. Like, Kinemon has a wife, obviously, so maybe they want to get back to his wife in that case. I don't know. There's so much that keeps Kinemon alive for me. It would make sense for him to die, but the fact like Kiku looks like she's about to die, Ashura Doji looks like he's dead. You know, I think he might be the only Scabbard to make it out alive. If he does, even at this point. It was such an interesting chapter. But also, thinking about Momonosuke reading the book, what if it turns out that Luffy is not Joy Boy? Because no one thought about this, right? Because maybe there's something that Kaido knows specifically that makes it very impossible for Luffy to be Joy Boy. And makes it to a point where maybe Momonosuke is Joy Boy. If we think about it, he's been desperate to kill Momonosuke since he found out he was Oden's kid. So maybe Kaido knows something, and Yamato definitely knows something about Momonosuke. She said he'll bring the dawn. So it's highly likely that maybe Momonosuke is Joy Boy. Not saying I'd like that. I really don't like Momonosuke. You know, I understand he's 8 years old, but his whole like pervy thing that he does with Nami just kind of ruined his character for me. Like, Sanji was done pretty well in that aspect. Besides Thriller Bark, you know, everything besides Thriller Bark, I'm okay with Sanji. He's done pretty well. Brook, I disliked originally, but then when you think about it, he's been deprived of that stuff for 50 years, so I guess it can be given a pass. 50 years on a skeleton boat, any female is going to attract you like that, so I mean, you know, a bit of a pass. He wrote it into a way where I can't really hate on it too much because he's not as bad as a lot of other characters. But Momonosuke's an 8-year-old boy, mate, and it's not. It just no. It looks weird. It feels weird every time it happens on screen, and it just doesn't. It doesn't sit well. Honestly, it really doesn't. But that is besides the point. Right now, is it gonna be a 3 act structure now? Because I was so confident it would end Act 3 now, but the fact that we haven't, like, will it be a 3 act structure? I don't know. And Yamato's still running to the roof, right? But Kaido's not on the roof anymore. But that was such a big explosion to get him into where Momonosuke was. I honestly think that something has to go down, right? Like, everyone has to notice. No one's going to the roof now. Yamato's definitely changed back direct. Something's going on. I just don't know what. There's so much that could happen. Like, will it be everyone against Kaido at some point? Because I feel like it won't be a one-on-one fight ever. Because they kind of want to keep the if one-on-one Ben on Kaido type deal. So maybe everyone will fight Kaido at some point. Like, everyone important, obviously. So, like, the Straw Hats, the Yamato, and the remaining Scabbards. Maybe. Because he's not on the roof anymore, so he's much easily accessible. But there's a lot that could happen with him right now. We could talk about the D. There's so much stuff that you can take away with this with a D, but I might make that an entirely separate thing. We'll see what I do with that. There's so much different things, and as shown at the end of the chapter, it looks like that we're about to get to Wano by the end of like next chapter. Yeah, it looks like we're about to get to Wano by the end of next chapter. So let's see how it goes. I think this chapter was like top tier. I really enjoyed it, so I hope he keeps it up. We get like 2 more chapters before the next break, so let's see what he can do, man. I hope they get Luffy back in an interesting way. I know I'm focusing way too much on Luffy here, but man, I don't know. I just there's so much to intrigue me about Luffy right now in this arc and all the stuff we're learning about the Joy Boy, and I still feel like Luffy will be Joy Boy. But the fact that there's a small chance that Momonosuke might be Joy Boy kind of kills me, you know what I mean? I just really want to focus on Luffy right now, just to kill that possibility. Or Jinbei. Bro, just give me some Jinbei. I really want that Jinbei fight, man. Please. I want to see if something happened to him with the Big Man Pirates. So he has to run into Big Mom at some point, because Big Mom's going to definitely mention it, right? She has to, yeah? But Oda came out with another banger chapter, though. A lot of people are saying it's the best chapter of the year. I don't know about that. I like the Usher chapter quite a bit, but we'll see how it goes, man. I'm so conflicted on the idea of, like, what the D is now. Because there's so much to think. What Joy Boy in the D means now. There's so much. Kaido knows about this. That changes a lot. Oda made a real banger chapter, man. Hats off to you, dude. Hats off, man. Absolutely killer chapter, honestly.